number of justices up to Congress. And Congress has changed that number 7 times in the history of the country. Our founders understood that as the country and the judicial system evolve, the court needs to evolve with it. And this legislation represents a much-needed next step in that evolution. Many people think about the Supreme Court in terms of its individual members, and they're right to do so. But it's also the fact that in addition to what we were referring to a few minutes ago in terms of the legitimacy of the court, the efficiency of the court is another question. 9 justices may have made sense in the 19th century when there were only 9 circuits. Only a few hundred appeals were filed before the court every year. And so many of our most important laws, everything from civil rights to antitrust, the internet, financial regulation, healthcare, immigration, and white-collar crime simply did not exist as far as the court was concerned and did not require adjudication by the Supreme Court. But the logic behind having only 9 justices is much weaker today when there are 13 circuit courts, thousands of cases filed before the court each year, and the full range of statutes and regulations that make our economy and our society work. And that's why, unlike through most of our history, the Supreme Court accepts certiorari, accepts cases in a tiny, tiny fraction of cases. And that means that most cases, the vast majority of cases, the overwhelming majority of cases, don't get considered by the Supreme Court, which they are entitled to do, and throughout much of our history did. Our predecessors made eminent sense when they pegged the size of the Supreme Court to the number of judicial circuits. As our country has grown, so too to the Supreme Court. 13 justices for 13 circuits is a logical progression. And that is another reason why I'm glad to join my colleagues in introducing the Judiciary Act of 2021 to establish the Supreme Court size as 13. That's a nice number. It's not a nice number. It's a proper number. It matches the number of circuits as it has historically, and it also will enable us to do justice and to rectify the great injustice that was done in packing the court. And some people will say we're packing the court. We're not packing it. We're unpacking it. Senator McConnell and the Republicans packed the court over the last couple of years, as Senator Markey outlined. So this is a reaction to that. It's a necessary step in the evolution of the court, and I'm proud to co-sponsor it.
All right, moments ago on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court, a group of Democrats introduced a bill that would expand the number of Supreme Court justices from 9 to 13. But House Speaker Nancy Pelosi just said she does not support this. Take a listen.
I support the president's commission to study such a proposal. I have no plans to bring it to the floor, no.
So she's in favor of this study, but doesn't plan to bring it to the floor, at least not right now. Now, the pushback to the court is also getting some pushback from Republicans, of course, who are calling it an assault on judicial independence. The legislation comes on the heels of President Biden forming this commission here. But flashback to 1983 to then Senator Joe Biden. He had a very different take on the idea of packing the court.
President Roosevelt clearly had the right to send to the United States Senate and the United States Congress a proposal to pack the court. It was totally within his right to do that. He violated no law. He was legalistically absolutely correct, but it was a bonehead idea. It was a terrible, terrible mistake to make, and it put in question, for an entire decade, the...
All right, former White House Strategic Communications Director Mercedes Schlapp joins us now. Great to see you, Mercedes.
Great to see you, John.
All right, so we're going to talk about, too, what the ACU is doing in just a moment, but I wanted to get your reaction real quickly to Nancy Pelosi's comments. She says she won't bring it to the floor for a vote. So what are Democrats doing here? Why are they pushing this?
Well, we see that these liberal Democrats are very good at pressuring Nancy Pelosi. We've seen that happen in the past. So it'll be interesting to see if the speaker stays strong on her position not to move this forward. But let's just think this through. She does support this commission that Joe Biden has put together, and those recommendations will be very telling, because the mere fact that the Democrats are even entertaining this idea of packing the court is dangerous. They are looking to politicize the Supreme Court. They are looking to destroy our institutions and literally the American framework. I tell you, John, you watch this happen in the United States, These are the actions that happen in Latin America, in communist countries like Venezuela, where they pack the courts, where they change the institutions to favor one party. If we go in that direction, we will lose America.
No, it's true. We've seen this in Venezuela. We've seen it in other countries like Turkey, too, where Erdogan also packs his court with his preferred justices. This is what they do. This is a takeover here. Now, the thing, Mercedes, that's concerning here is that guys like Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, they kind of want to have it both ways. I don't think they honestly believe this is in the best interest of the country, but at the same time, they're trying to appease the far-left radical flank of their progressive base. And so they issue these commissions and these studies. But what we've seen time and time again is they get outflanked by the progressives in their party. And what kind of is an idea that they're interested in studying becomes a serious policy initiative for these radicals. And they don't have control over this flank of their party.
Yeah, I think what you have seen is a destruction of actually the moderate Democrat. There's very few left. What's reigning in the Democrat Party is the far left group. They're the ones in charge. They're the ones setting the agenda. And obviously what we are also seeing is a weak president who basically gives in on a whim to these leftists. So I think that what we're watching right now is, as you mentioned, not only the takeover, but a dangerous path that we are headed towards when it comes to their radical ideas, whether it be H.R. 1, which would fundamentally change our voting systems, federalizing our elections, or which of course would lead to a one-party system, or, for example, in the case of packing the courts, or these massive spending bills where it seems like even court packing might be defined as infrastructure.
The Roosevelt soundbite is so interesting because it does seem like a lot of what they are trying to do now is reminiscent of the New Deal era legislation, post-World War II legislation, when Democrats were able to basically have at least a permanent majority, somewhat permanent majority in Congress for so long. And that's what they're trying to seek out again. The other thing, too, it's like D.C. statehood and everything else. Mercedes, what they do is they propose bills in the legislative process knowing that they're going to fail, and they go back to the American public and say, look, well, as long as we have the filibuster, as long as we have these rules in place, we can't do what we're telling you we can do, which is the Green New Deal and all this progressive stuff. So everything is kind of meant to erode that filibuster, isn't it?
That's right. And, you know, look, when we're looking at, for example, Senator Manchin being the last standing Democrat and Senator Sinema in basically saying we don't want to get rid of the filibuster, we're in a scary position. I mean, we've seen Senator Manchin turn against Republicans many times. So this is a moment where we're in a very delicate position. And it's really going to be the next year and a half before the midterm elections to see if we can hold back and ensure that they don't get rid of the filibuster. If they get rid of the filibuster, it's all hands in. It is a matter of watching the progressive agenda being dictated and implemented across the country. Our last line of defense, John, it's going to be the governors. It's going to be the Republican governors saying, we're not going to put up with federal government encroaching on our state rights.
You're going to have completely different laws every 2 years if that's what happens. There's going to be flopping back and forth. So let's talk about why what the ACU is doing right now when it comes to election integrity is so important. Talk to us about the initiative now and what you guys are doing.
Yes, well, American Conservative Union just launched the Center to Protect Voters and Their Voices. And it's part of it is election integrity. Part of it is working with state legislatures to ensure that they put safeguards around our elections. This is about one vote, one legal vote. It's very clear. This is also about ensuring that we require voting IDs, the same way, for example, that you need a voting ID to get on an airplane, like a Delta flight. Or you need an ID to get a COVID vaccine, you should have an ID to vote. So these are allowing to put safeguards in place so we can ensure fair and free elections. This is not about Republicans versus Democrats. This is about protecting our republic. And secondly, is also really honing in on these woke corporations who are aligning themselves with the Soros groups, basically where they're trying to disregard the election reforms in these Republican states.
They are
We've seen Major League Baseball, NCAA, we've seen Delta Airlines. John, it's just a disturbing
They are perpetuating.
trend.
They are perpetuating this lie about these laws being racist. They are not racist, and they're more expansive than the 2018 voting laws in Georgia, for example, which a federal judge has basically thrown out all of Stacey Abrams' case challenging that. But we'll have to leave that for another time, Mercedes, because we are out of time, unfortunately. But we'd love to have you back soon. Great to see you as always.
Thank you, John.
Mercedes Schlapp from the ACU, the American Conservative Union. All right.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.